So today we are making a mince roll wrapped in scone dough. Now this thing has a lot of ingredients, so we are going to combine the ingredients into containers, otherwise we will have no space on our units. So since we're going to use the oil for frying, please put the oil directly into the small pan. Then you're going to need a small onion that is called a shallot. We are going to need garlic, salt, mushrooms, mince. In here we have a mixture of chutney, Worcester sauce, mustard and pepper, and then here we have the cheese and the parsley. So this is part one. We're going to prep the filling first because that needs to cool, and then we're going to prep the scone dough. So now that is in the pan. Now it's time to prepare our little onion. So we're going to cut off this part here so we can peel it nicely. Got a nice purple color to it. Alright, so don't cut off the back. You are going to need that to help keep the onion together. So we are going to make little incisions. Try to go as far to the back as possible. Now we are going to make horizontal incisions. And now we are going to chop it nicely. So this gives us a nice diced onion without having to chop all over the board. And then this is just the back. That's not a very nice part. All right, so as you can see the movement of my knife, it goes tip, back, tip, back. I don't want to see this, because as you can see, then your product jumps everywhere. It makes a big noise and everybody gets a fright. All right, so this is now nicely chopped, and I can just transfer it into a small container. This goes one side. Now we need to deal with the garlic. Now this is the garlic bulb. We are only going to use 1 clove of the garlic. So to prepare our garlic, you need to cut off this piece here, and you need to cut off that. So you need to top and tail your bulb. Then you peel off the husk. And then you're going to slice it very nice and fine. Alright. Give it a little rough chop. Put your hand at the top of the blade, and we're going to have our rocking back and front motion. We're going to keep our hand by the tip and just going to go side to side, side to side. But now our garlic is still too rough to be considered minced, and we want minced garlic. So we are going to add our salt at this point. So please do not add any other salt to your dish without first tasting the dish. The grit from the salt is going to help us mince this garlic. So now we are going to work with the sharp edge. It's going to be at an angle, the blade, but you're going to use your fingers and you're going to slide down. But the knife mustn't lay flat. The knife needs to stay at an angle while you drag it backwards. And you can hear the grit from the salt, and you work a little bit at a time. And that's going to mash our garlic for us nice and fine. So we have a paste. And now you have one very, very smelly chopping board. And still hear the salt, grit, grit, grit. See, people like the taste of garlic in food, but they don't always like biting into chunks of garlic. So that's why we turn it into a minced, mashed garlic. Scrape it off. And since we're frying the onion and the garlic together, we just add it to the same container. Now the mushrooms. Now technically, you should not wash a mushroom because it's a fungus, it absorbs a lot of moisture, then the mushroom gets soggy. You're supposed to take off the center, use these little flaps, and then peel the garlic. But if you need to do a big buffet breakfast and you are going through 50 kilograms of mushrooms, I can guarantee you nobody is going to be peeling the mushrooms. They are just going to be washed, and in some cases they're not even going to be washed because they get soggy. Now we are going to wash the mushrooms. I already rinsed these, but I dried them with some paper towel. And just for interest's sake, I'm just peeling this one as well. So you can see it's quite a labor-intensive process. And imagine if you have small button mushrooms, then it's going to be even worse. Alright, so now we have clean mushrooms. We need to just slice these up. Again, our rocking motion. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And we're also just going to slice up the little stems. There we go. You can still hear the grit from the salt on the chopping board. Alright, so now we are ready to start frying. Alright, so now our oil is hot. You can see it's sizzling around the onion. So let me just get my wooden spoon. In goes the onion and the garlic. And hear the nice sizzle there. Alright, and I'm going to add my mushrooms to this. And now you're just going to fry it until the mushrooms has cooked down a bit and the onions have slightly browned. So now you can see less than half of our onion, garlic and mushroom mixture is left, because all the moisture has evaporated and everything is nice and soft. So now we can add our mince to brown. and break it apart. Alright, so as you can see, my mince is now grey. It's not quite brown yet. So we're just going to stir it for another minute or so. You can see the oil cooking out of the mince here. Alright, so now that our mince has developed better color, push the mince to one side of the pan. Squeeze out all the oil. We want to get rid of this extra oil before we add our sauce ingredients. So we are just going to take a spoon and scoop out all this unnecessary oil. Otherwise you will have a very soggy, greasy product. Look at all this oil that cooked out of the mince. And then they call this lean mince. Alright, that's much better. And now we're going to add everything else. The Worcester sauce, the chutney, the mustard, and the pepper. We're just going to cook it down slightly. We don't want the filling to be very moist, but also not too dry. The key is we want a crispy dough around it, not a soggy dough. So just cooking out the unnecessary moisture, leaving just the flavor ingredients behind. And now it looks nice and glossy from the sugar that's in the chutney. As soon as it is cooked, please transfer it immediately to your glass bowl with a lid. We never leave cooked food in a pan because the residual heat from the pan is going to overcook your product. Spread it out so that it can cool down nicely. So now, I forgot to chop the parsley earlier, so we're going to chop it now. We don't want to chop the stem because it's way too coarse. So we're just going to break off the little florets here on top. We just want the little leaves, not this terrible stem. But even after breaking off the leaves, this is still too rough. We don't want these giant bits of parsley in the food. So again, I'm going to put my weight at the tip of my knife and just go side to side with my knife to make it nice and fine. That's good. We need to measure out 15 mils of fresh parsley. So here we have our 15 mils of chopped parsley. You're going to need about 3 sprigs to get to 15 mils. 1 sprig is about 5 mils of parsley. So in that goes. We add it last because we want the parsley to keep its texture and its color. If you fry it with everything else, it will just get lost in the meal. And then we're going to add our cheese. And here, more cheese is not a good thing. Normally, more cheese is fantastic, but here we want to limit the oil content. And cheese has got a lot of fat in it. So when it melts, it's going to secrete more fat. So we keep to the suggested amount of cheese that needs to go in here. Okay, now we can just stir it together. And there is your filling. Now we can focus on making the dough. Alright, so now we're going to do part 2. We need to make the scone dough that we're going to use to make our roll. So you're going to need some sifted flour, baking powder, your salt and your sugar. That's a tricky measurement. because it's 2 mils and 2 mils. So just don't make the 2.5 too full. We don't want it to be too salty or too sweet. Some margarine, some cheese, some milk, egg. Now your beaten egg is slightly under 60 mils. Half of the egg is going in with the milk and the other half is going to be used for coating the scone dough, so we have a nice golden brown gloss in the end. So you are going to pour out slightly less than 30 mils and keep it one side so that we can use it for brushing. And then this is going to be added to the milk. So let's begin. Flour, baking powder, salt and sugar. Mix it all together. Here you're going to have to use your fingertips, so this gets a little bit messy. We're going to rub the margarine into the flour. So coat the margarine first, break it into small little bits. Okay, coat them again. And now we're just going to rub them in between our fingertips. Don't use your palms to rub it in because we don't want the heat from the hands to melt the butter. A cold pastry is a happy pastry. So we need to prevent this butter from melting. We just want to rub it into the flour until it resembles breadcrumbs. Alright, so you can see that the texture of the flour has changed now. It's a bit rougher because we have rubbed the butter in here. And there's no lumps of butter left. Everything is nice and fine. So now we're going to add the milk to the egg. So now we're just going to mix the egg and the milk properly. So just give it a quick whisk again. Before we add the liquids, we're going to add our cheese. And just use your knife to mix the cheese around. Add your liquids. And now we're just going to cut the liquids into the dry ingredients until we have a nice dough forming. So at this point, you can start using your hands now to start pressing the dough together. At this point, you can start using your hands to form the dough because it's difficult to get all the dry ingredients incorporated with the little bit of moisture that we are using. But we don't want a soggy dough, so we're going to have to put a little bit of effort into this. And besides, kneading it is going to develop a little bit of elasticity, and we're going to need that elasticity in order to roll out the dough and shape it. So you see now it's coming together. And I'm just using my fingers, I'm not using my palms because I don't want my dough to get hot. Okay, now we can take it out of the bowl. Give it a quick roll just to develop that little bit of elasticity. Not a long roll, just a quick roll. Alright, and now start shaping it into a rectangle because we are going to be rolling it out in the shape of a rectangle. So if you start with a ball, it's difficult to roll out. So just start with a rectangle shape already and work from there. At this point, just sprinkle a little bit of flour on your surface so you're going to have a big mess to clean up. And we roll in one direction, up and down, up and down, up and down. Then we turn and then we go up and down again. Reshape slightly. And again, we're just going up and down, up and down. We don't go diagonally all over the place, then the product is not going to rise very nicely. Roll is kind of stubborn to roll out. point we can sprinkle a little bit more. Turn it around. Keep trying to force it back into a rectangle. Need to put some real pressure into this. So, now we mustn't forget to measure it. Alright, I've got my 30 centimeter length that I'm looking for. Now let's look at my width. Alright, so I can squash it a little bit in a bit. Doesn't have to be so wide. And I have my 25. So now I've got my 25 by my 30. So I am happy. Just loosen your dough again, lift it up so you don't have something that is stuck. Now we can add our filling to this. And we're going to spread it. As you roll, it's also going to distribute, so you don't have to go all the way to the edges. Look how glossy it looks. That's from all the oil and the sugars that's in here. Okay, and now I need to roll this up. And I need to start at its widest side. And there I have my pretty little roll. Okay. Now I need to transfer this to my baking tray. Baking tray has already been sprayed. The seam at the bottom is going down, so we want the pretty smooth side on the top. But now we've got uneven edges here. So we are going to just trim off the uneven edge. Please don't cut too hard and damage the tray. And now I need to portion my roll. So I'm going to measure off 2.5 centimeter marks and do a partial slice, not all the way through. This is just going to help us in the end so that we don't break the pastry when we cut it. So there is a 2.5 marker. And there's a 2.5 marker. There's a 2.5. There's a 2.5. Another one. Another one. Another one. Another one. All right. Now I'm going to just slightly slice. Not all the way through. I'm just opening up the roll. Back and forth, like you're sawing. Please don't cut, just don't force the knife down. Don't go straight down, saw. Otherwise you're going to squash your pastry. Alright, so now my roll is sliced, and now I just need to add my egg wash for the top. So you take your little brush and give it a nice coating. Dip the brush again. Dry it on the edges a bit so you don't drip egg everywhere. There we go. And now it's going into the oven at 180 degrees for about 20 minutes. You can see our roll is done. It just came out of the oven. It is golden brown. And now we're just going to cut straight through where we made our little incisions. And we need to plate about half of this roll, because this is enough for 2 people to eat. There we go. And if we lift it up, look how pretty it looks. You can see all the little spirals, the gooiness from the filling, and here you can see the dough is fully cooked because it isn't soggy, it's gone white. I need to get about 5 slices onto the plate because we need to work in uneven numbers, either 3 or 5. So you can pack them that they're all standing up like this, or you can lay them flat. 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down. So you can decide how you want to present it to me. So the last thing we need to do is we need to garnish our plate. So I've got a garlic chive here, and I'm just going to add a little tomato for color. And then if we turn it around, that is our finished product.